I'm Melissa Doyle and welcome to World Vision's Windows to the World, where we shine a light on different corners of our globe each week and we bring you exclusive stories about how our world is being changed by COVID-19. Now, it's a very special edition this week. It is National Reconciliation Week. So joining me is model and World Vision Goodwill Ambassador, the fabulous Samantha Harris. And a little bit later on, I'm going to be speaking to Australian First Nation Program Director, Dr. Anne Pattel-Gray. But we start with Sam. Sam, your mum has an incredible story. How much has that impacted your view of the world?
It has impacted my view on the world. Obviously, the world can be a beautiful place, but the world can also not be so nice and so kind to people. In case, if no one knows, my mum was part of the stolen generation. She was taken away from her family with her three sisters. In saying that, I had my mum down last year sometime. We were sitting at the table and she goes, Samantha, I want to go back to the home I was taken to. She literally said that out of the blue. And so she was taken to her home it was in Bomaderry. So I think it's like 4 hours out of Sydney. I drove my mum back there and she had a look at it's still, there's some of the houses still standing. And one of the saddest things she said to me, even now brings a tear to my eye, she was like, it's not as big as I thought it was when I was younger. And that proved she would have been tiny. Just standing there looking around at these homes. She could even point out her home. So it's, impacted a lot. She gave us the life she never had and couldn't because of obvious reasons. So back to this, even schooling, how you learn things in school. Sorry, hopefully I'm making sense. I don't think we're taught everything, basically. Or a lot of the things I was taught was from my mum. It's not from school. The school kind of gives you just a dust over, a little kind of a quick recap, but not what literally happened. It was horrible what happened. And to make it even worse, it happened to my mum and my aunties and my grandmother. I don't know what else to say. Start crying, really.
You took a special trip with her to the Kimberley last year.
Yes.
Can you tell us about what that meant for you and what that meant for her? And also, I guess, the two of you together, what you were able to see in one another.
Well, the Kimberley trip, for starters, my mum has never been on a plane longer than 1 hour. So the start of the trip was getting her on that actual plane and telling her it wasn't 5 hours, telling her it was only 3, so it didn't freak her out. So the plane ride it was all right. She did very well. But just when she got to the Kimberleys, again, never been to WA, she didn't know what to expect. And everyone loved her. My mum was a hit. Everyone from all the communities loved her mum. I think they loved her a bit more than me, which is understandable. But just sharing that with her. When we got there, we got smoked by some elders and, going out to remote communities with mum. I'd never been to a remote community and it was really special. Seeing mum out there because my mum grew up a lot different to I did. And it was it's like she was home again, I guess you could kind of say. There's no, I don't know what else I could say to people could kind of relate to her, but it's like she was back home. She was comfortable. She was with her culture. She was with her people. Because where my mum lives on the Gold Coast and where I was born, she doesn't have a lot of family around. Obviously me, my brothers and cousins, but just to see her with, other elders and just other mums out there talking about their kids and everything. It was, it's like she was back home and it was really lovely to see.
So then if you have the opportunity to teach me something right now, what do I need to know today? National Reconciliation Week. What is the message to take forward?
What I think people need to know is, again, an amazing culture, a resilient culture, oldest living culture in the world. We've come so far. We still have quite a way to come. You know the saying, don't believe everything you read or everything you hear. Take the time yourself to kind of, learn for yourself. And, I think people will be surprised. I would like to say pleasantly surprised, but I I don't think it'd be pleasantly surprised. They will be surprised. And, might feel like they could have been living under a rock for a bit of a time in their life.
You're amazing. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
And now I am joined by Dr. Anne Pattel-Gray, World Vision Head of the Australia First Nations program. Anne is an Aboriginal woman, descendant of the Bidjiran Nation, and she's also a recognised Aboriginal leader within Australia. It's lovely to talk to you, Anne. Thank you for joining me. How are you managing? How are you going in this isolation period?
Well, I seem to be coping quite well. I said technology is just a wonderful thing. It enables us to stay connected, to reach out to friends and to continue doing business. So, all's going very well.
Why do you think First Nations people are particularly exposed at the moment to the damage and risk from this coronavirus pandemic?
Look, the problem that we have, the dangers cut across all regions, regardless of whether you're in remote, rural or urban society. We have what we find in most of our communities is intergenerational homes where we have many generations living together, sometimes in very crowded housing. You also have generational health issues, chronic health across our communities and particularly in families. They all started at a very early age, and the impact, of course, throughout their life increases and becomes more and more serious. So, those aspects of society leave us within a situation that places us at high risk. Chronic disease, intergenerational loss and trauma, a loss of being connected to country and culture and community, and to just traditional lifestyles.
What is at stake for children? Are they particularly vulnerable, and other impacts, not necessarily just straight from the virus itself?
What this coronavirus has done in this country is magnified the living conditions and poor health and social issues or injustice within this country. And of course, highlighted the vulnerability of our children in particular, where, you have communities where price gouging is taking place, where mothers can't even buy healthy food, vegetables, meat for their children because they can't afford to pay the exorbitant prices. You have children that have been disconnected from learning and education, who, as a result of, at some aspects, becoming marginalised further and isolated within their communities.
And what about concerns that you would have for children into the future when the virus has gone and that issue has been addressed with? I'm sure there are a lot of things that will take a lot of time, won't they, to affect?
Well, look, the issues for us are ongoing. Our resilience in the fact is that we continue to survive and struggle in, a first world economy that basically has disenfranchised us as a people and have marginalised us to the periphery of society. And, governments need to basically continue to address these inadequacies and these injustices and these lack of services that have been highlighted as a result of COVID-19, and address how we're going to, continue to meet the needs of our children in community right across Australia.
Is there anything that we could all do at this time that could potentially unite us? I feel like the whole world is against this one thing, and it is the virus. Is there anything that we could be doing right now that might unite all of our communities?
This COVID-19 basically has no prejudice. It just, affects everybody, regardless of who you are. And I think that's should enable us to be mindful of one another, I think, and that, we're all just as vulnerable as one another, and perhaps we should be looking at how more effectively we can address this together and stand, shoulder to shoulder, so to speak, around identifying our strength as a nation, but also looking at the First Nations that do not have, some of those elements of good health and nutrition and, access to services that we take for granted in the cities. Perhaps we could be mindful of those that are without during this time, and just think of how we might be able to make things different in the future. A lot of these remote communities have no access to the medical services that they would require should anyone, get the virus. They would literally have to be flown out of their community to one of the capital cities to be able to get the medical attention, which again has a significant impact of isolation, marginalisation, because a lot of our people, whether people realise it or not, don't speak English. And have full cultural practices and protocols. So when they go into hospitals, the hospitals don't have any understanding or protocols on how to engage with our people, in the medical service. I saw, for an example, one time where a young man was brought in from the Northern Territory to the Queensland Hospital here, and the nurses come in to do what they do, and he was fully initiated, so women can't touch him. And he was going crazy, shushing her away because he couldn't speak proper English, and she couldn't understand. She just thought he was, labelled him as being aggressive and, rude and whatever. And my son was in the next bed, and I explained to her, he's a fully initiated man. You can't touch him. You need to send in a male nurse and you will no longer have problems.
So Anne, as I finish up, tell me how you stay positive during this time, and maybe give us all a message of hope.
Well, my spirituality is very much a part of my well-being. Staying in touch and practicing my culture is very significant for me, and teaching that to my grandchildren, to my children. But for me, the greatest aspiration, I suppose, that I can take away during this time is the camaraderie that I've experienced in World Vision. It has been magnificent. It has been uplifting. It has been soul-quenching, having World Vision walk that journey with us and to give us that platform in which to raise our First Nation voice to be heard. To me is, an incredible thing, and I feel privileged and honoured to be a part of such a wonderful organisation.
It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you, and I really appreciate your time, and please give our best to all of your team. They are doing an amazing job.
Thank you so very much, Mel.
And thank you for watching from home, World Vision's Windows to the World, as we recognise National Reconciliation Week. More information, as always, is on our website, and you can have a look at all the work that we are doing around the world. I hope you can join us next week. Another fascinating conversation. We've got Gemma Snowden. She is with the World Food Programme, and we'll be crossing to her in Cox's Bazar in Bangladesh to get an idea of the situation there. And we're also speaking to Andrew Morley. He is CEO and President of World Vision International. So I look forward to your company next week. I'm Melissa Doyle. Take care.